There it is. The practical AI toolkit. I am also aware it is 3:40 in the afternoon at the end of a lovely and full conference day, and I will try not to step in front of the projector, so I'll stand over here. So just a little bit about me. That's me. That's my AI-generated photo. I really wish I owned that jacket. I think I found it at Hugo Boss, but I have to lose another 20 pounds. So we're not quite there yet. But I'm based in Salem. If you get the joke about witchcraft and governance, I love you. If you don't know what governance is, I teach that at Rutgers. So digital strategy and product. I worked at 20th Century Fox for more than 10 years. The super fun part of that is 1 part metadata, 1 part automation, and the dirty secret that $190 million worth of product was run by a series of interconnected access databases. Do you want to know how many interconnected access databases? 24. So that's how they ran their entire TV schedule, and that was a genesis for the beginning of automation when the Simpsons did not launch in Australia one year, and the world went crazy, and I got to meet one of the Murdochs. And he was not a happy man. Yes, I was not on his Christmas list. Also worked at Forrester Research. I ran digital strategy and production there. And then I also currently teach at Rutgers. So I teach professional development. I've taught over 500 students in the last couple of years. I teach AI, DAM, governance, and some other fun courses. And I do consulting and have fun like that. So that's a little bit about me. My dog's name is Murphy. My house is 305 years old, and it's haunted. All right, so some quote walls. Who loves your daily, this is the tool of the day in your inbox moment? And I literally grabbed these at 8 o'clock in the morning just to show you that today, and that's only like a small sample of the tools that have come out in the AI universe. And so what are some of the quotes with the clients that I work with? Well, one of my favorites, there are 3 of my favorites, and there we go. Google Slides and I are not the best friends. But, so this is Creative Vector FS, cool demo, it's live. Who approved this? In the middle of a stakeholder meeting. All right, that was a good one. Next one, we got outputs. All sorts of outputs. And that was from digital lead at a global pharma whose AI had literally run amok and started generating languages they never even asked for. That was very good, especially in Russian. This one, I love this. This is one of the largest CPG companies in the world. And the VP said, basically, we don't need another AI pilot. Please, no more. Please, 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 no more. And so this is the state of affairs in which we walk in today, which is true for enterprise, for nonprofit, for mission and heritage, and it's all across the board. So hopefully today, a little bit of understanding about AI toolkit considerations. This is not a survey. I have no intent to tell you about all the tools that came out since I woke up this morning. There were at least 50, I'm sure. We're going to talk a little bit about outcomes and metrics, because why do you need metrics? If you can't measure it, you can't succeed, you don't know if you failed. We're going to talk about pitfalls, misuse, underuse, and no use, which I think is super fun. Practical strategies to drive successful AI toolkit adoption. I'm pretty sure that could be less words. And then the disclaimer. So on these slides, I put a lot of words, and I'll tell you why. Because I want you to take them home. So part of today is going to be a little bit about choose your own adventure. My job is to relay concepts, tell you really funny anecdotes that you'll give me 5 out of 5 on the surveys later, and then just share sort of the fun and how you can approach things from a practical perspective. I go back and forth on AI images and stock images. You hate both, that's fine. And then just a reminder that at 8:47 this morning, the tools that we took photos of, that's when I transferred it to Google Slides. So a little bit of the session overview for today. I'm originally from New York. If I talk too fast, my apologies. I will try to emulate where I went to school, which is the School of Music in Indiana University. My original career was a classical clarinetist. All right. Oh, and by the way, still can't spell. I know. AI images, they're getting better. All right. So why does it matter now? Hype. We've talked about all the headlines. I used to do a talk about empathy around AI and how organizations need to have more empathy around change. The headlines are everywhere. It's almost become like this background noise, but I still feel it. I feel it with my students, and I feel it with my clients, and I certainly feel it with my neighbors who think I am batshit crazy in doing this. Did I say that out loud? Oh, I meant to say are feeling anxiety. Speed and scale are critical. We know this. Everything's faster. It feels faster. What's interesting is some things are slower, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Adoption still struggles. Who trusts AI? Raise your hand, 100%. Yep, no one in the room, not even me. And that's okay. Who thinks AI is a good fit for the company where they're at now, at least half of the time? Okay, this is actually pretty, we're going to come back to that. So this is actually pretty normal when I ask this question in workshops. Generally, less than half the people in a room will answer yes to that last one. We're going to talk about opportunity for transformation. Now, this is almost like a bit of the, hacksaw, chainsaw, over and over repeating thing. We know it can unlock possibilities. You've heard the pitch. You just heard it in a session earlier today. There's truth to this. There's a caveat to it, but there's truth. Nice human crawling a framework. All right, so day in the life. Sesame Street, Airbnb, and an unnamed company sponsored sessions in Boston, San Francisco, and New York. And to start off the sessions, I asked them to envision a day in their life with AI. And we got 3 wonderful representative answers that I think are the state of affairs today. The first one is, I'm walking down a beautiful path, we're walking, there's technology, I see trees, I have tea, there's a little bit of organization. That was actually pretty good. Not bad for a day in the life of AI. The next one requires explanation because it looks like something out of MoMA. So these are the little people who have been told what to do by the big people who float above them and look down on their efforts in silos. These little balloons are trial balloons of ideas attempting to reach the overlords, quote unquote, of my organization. All right, that was a lot. This one was pretty good. This is my hair on fire, and I'm thinking about martinis. That workshop was done in a city at 8:30 in the morning, and she was already like, I'm 3 olives in. So if we're confronting this part of it, how do we go from this situation to toolkits? All right, so let's talk about the practicality gap a little bit. Here we've got enterprise leaders who say AI is a priority, 6 to 8%. That's normal. You look at other surveys, and we're going to talk about fit to impact. How many humans in the organizations that think AI is a priority believe that AI is a fit to their outcomes and their impact? And the answer is 20%. Next one's interesting. We get down to what's the gap. So you're somewhere in between a proof of concept and real implementation. This is also another fun number. So 76. So think about it. 3/4 of everyone, at least in this aggregate of surveys, believes that they're stuck between a proof of concept and between actually implementing AI. So you got a toolkit gap. And I sort of like some of the AI images. I'm always curious about what the screens actually say. So you got this gap. And the challenge is you've got the future potential, because we always talk about what things can do, and then we've got the immediate impact. And this is the struggle. Like if I could put grit or mill or sponge or something in between, but a line seemed to work. Basically, the foundation of where some of this potential and this fit challenges is really about training and understanding. And trust. There's a lack of trust. For all good reasons. Not for bad reasons. Well, maybe some for bad reasons. But this lack of trust is real. And so perception being reality, own it. Own it and plan for it. Because that, plus the fact that teams are either insufficiently trained or misusing the tool, and I don't mean creating stuff for your kid's birthday or doing things with your neighbor or whatever it is. They're just that's the challenge that you have. And that's why when we think about AI toolkits, you've got this push-pull moment. Here's my potential, and here's what's going on in my impact, day to day. All right, other dynamics that are work. So one is when you think about content, and I happen to be at an amazing moment in the media supply chain content when we were moving from physical to digital. So who remembers a DVD? Oh my gosh, you're so old. We're so old. Oh my God. Yeah, so DVDs to Blu-rays to things that didn't work, then to streaming, right? So the content supply complexity got bigger and bigger and bigger. I remember when Apple used to do launches, they would call Fox and be like, we need 10 more titles. We need 15 more titles. Now nobody calls. They send you a spreadsheet and say, we need 1,200 more titles in 24 localized languages with cultural sensitivity. Add a different industry. I am selling milk today. I'm now selling, children's milk in 42 countries with localization, and you can't have these borders because of cultural sensitivities. The complexity is real. So there's a driver here. All right. Second one, multimodal AI. Like AI, remember when it was simple? And that's the wrong phrase. Like when you can do a thing with AI or do a thing, now it's like everyone's doing the wash. You take a sponge from the left, you put 1,000 colors on it, and depending on who you listen to, you get really blurry on what multimodal means. We'll do a quiz at the end. So you've just got a lot of stuff together, right? So that's a true dynamic. Governance. Oh, why don't organizations do AI governance? Raise your hand if you know a friend that has an organization where they don't specifically talk about AI governance. Your friend. All of you should raise your hand. And model guardrails. Like, I think there's a lot of discussion around what a guardrail is and not as much knowledge. I think someone actually, and this is a quote from the end of last year, couldn't you just unplug the server? Wow. Okay, there's a fun story. Next one. Composable platforms and LLMs as middleware. That is a whole conversation onto its own, but it's a true dynamic. Composable content, that's driving complexity, that's driving need, and that's driving requirements. All right, so a bit more on the drivers that really push. I don't know why they look happy, like, I just thought that was fun. All right, other drivers that push. So parameterization. This is like directly for you. Now, I, for one, prefer a little bit of unknown. Like, I haven't completely personalized my news feeds. I don't mind a little random surprise now and again. But if you're localized, if you're channel specific, if you're product specific, if it's timely, like, that's real. And so depending on the industry, and this even works for, if you think about museums, like what's their product, what's their localization, what's their channel, you've got some other fun stuff here about personalization in a physical space, personalization in a digital space, and a little bit of a hybrid moment. What does that seamless moment look like? Shrinking budgets, whoops. Shrinking budgets, this has been a consistent theme. I also think this is a little bit of a misnomer. When we say it's shrinking, it depends on where you're putting the money. So in many cases, the budgets are shrinking for a certain need and expanding in another. So if I'm building, for example, an in-house agency to cut and reduce my billables to a third-party digital agency, yeah, the budget is shrinking, but where did it shift? And I think there's an interesting conversation about where budgets goes. That's a whole other fun day. Risk and regulation. Does anyone work in a regulated industry? Which one? Pharma? No, I took a guess.
Sorry. I work in higher education, and we have plenty of things we have to meet. Notably, for the web, accessibility.
Yep. Lots of things that you have to work with. Guardrails outside your control. My favorite one, by the way, at Rutgers, and I also mentor students in Toronto, is that I teach an AI course, and you are not allowed to use AI at Rutgers to help with your assignments. Would you like to take a guess what high percentage of my students are obviously using ChatGPT to the point where they forgot to delete the prompt they put in for the homework assignment? Come on, kids, cheat better. So anyway, risk and regulation. Speed to market. All right, you got to go faster, you got to go faster. I think this one is overdone. I think the speed to market, there is a certain speed to market point where the human brain cannot absorb yet another new product and another new design and another new thing, but it's real, and it's a dynamic, and it's quantifiable, and there's qualitative feedback on it as well. All right, so where are we seeing success with toolkits that address these needs? All right, so, and I'm going to say, let me caveat that. Whoop, take that away. Success is defined with there are outcomes that achieve use case goals. I'm not doing an emotional success. You may not feel happy about it, but maybe it's achieving your use cases. Better definition? Thank you. I like the nod. Okay, so copywriting, localization, and enrichment. What is the world's best translation tool? Do you know? By study after study. Take a guess.
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. You are right. ChatGPT is the world's best translation tool, which kills me when I see other is anyone from a translation company? If you are, I say this with love, best tool in the world as proven by multiple studies. There are a lot of translation tools out there that are very expensive. If you have your $9.99 or whatever it costs for ChatGPT, you can do, tone, you can do age, you can do demographic. It's actually pretty amazing. So we're super successful in a couple of areas here against use cases. Copywriting and enrichment, there are lots of good stories here. Image generation, I'm going to go more happiness with ideation, less proof on brand safe image, but definitely we're getting there for template customization. Brand safe images and brand integrity is a very big driver, and because there's been a lot of good investment in this, there's a lot of great products out there that can do, let's say, 90% plus. So that's pretty awesome if you're looking at it from an outputs perspective. What does that mean for your org? What does it mean for the human QA element? What does it mean for workflow? Other considerations, but for this category, pretty positive. Visual content and scoring, I'll show you one of my favorite photos on this later. I can look in a room, we take a photo of this room, and AI will tell you if you're interested or not. It will tell you lots of things about you as a consumer. I see shoes, I see sandals, I see, oh, really cool socks. There's amazing things in a wealth of information in a picture. This is one of the areas where absolutely, partially because the complexity has gotten so big and the volume of content has gotten so big, you need these tools. And some of them are very good. Areas where we're still working through stuff, and I have high hopes for both. Workflow automation and brand governance, but why do you think maybe these aren't as successful? You know the tools that are out there. We're going to do a little bit of a list later. What could possibly be a common theme here that would make workflow definition and governance troubling? People liability. Thank you. Two top answers. Right? So this isn't actually a challenge with AI, I would make the case. This is a challenge with the fundamentals of how we use it, how we set up for it, and how we define it. All right, I don't know where those colors came from, but they're pretty. So, system integration, not silos. Operational efficiency. You can play with this depending on your org, but let's talk about some of this. These are from Gartner, from Forrester. I have citations in the PowerPoint presentation, and I'll make sure that that's shared. But, think about reduction. 40 to 60% reduction in repetitive creative tasks, broadly defined. 11 hours per week saved by human due to AI automation. This statement here brings you joy or complete need to get a new prescription to sleep at night, right? Workflow and collaboration. This is cool. Fewer review cycles with AI assisted, not AI owned or AI created, but AI assisted. And a 50% increase in creative throughput using generative. Generally on the ideation part, a lot of the gains last year were much on ideation. Creative exploration, concepts again, faster delivery of client ready. Did anyone ever work in print or advertising where you would have the key art review, and you'd walk into the room with the posters, and they'd say it sucked, and you'd leave, and a week later after the printer had got done, you'd walk into the room. Now a CMO can be like, nope, have a cup of coffee, and you're like, here's your next 50 things to look at. This is either good or bad. I'm not judging it, but it's very interesting. 50% higher favorability rater for AI-assisted creative work. That one's a little squiggly. I put it in there because I thought it was sort of cool. The growth one, if you are, and each member of senior leadership and C-suite is now typically charged with growth responsibilities or some P&L responsibility, 6% is big. If you can pull 6% up, down, sideways on either top line, bottom line revenue, or on lowering your operational costs, that is real. That's beyond incremental. So the benefits of integrating AI into your system, there's some good things here. It can't stand alone though. And one of the things that companies have challenges with is that they don't realize that AI is already there, right? Who has a cell phone in the room? Congratulations, you have AI in your pocket. You probably, who has more than 3 AI apps on their phone? Nice. All right, more than 10? Okay, I'm crazy. So that's all good. But it's funny when you compare answers. Has anyone used Perplexity at all? So recommend Perplexity. Why? Why do we like it?
Also just for the web searching.
Web search, citations, it's more quantitative, it tells you what it's doing, it's sort of really interesting. Sometimes I feel like with ChatGPT, you push against it and you get float, and then it comes back with you with something. But that's a standalone unit. So if we all work for the same company, and you have a phone and you have a phone, we can individually be very productive on our own, or we can be part of the ecosystem. And here's what's happened when you successfully put an AI toolkit into an ecosystem. All right, positive AI trends. Getting better. We're getting more accurate. Not always perfect, but we're getting more accurate. We are getting easier, and I put that in quotes, because integrations are easier. They're not always easy. They require configuration, but we are moving away from a customization universe much more to a configuration universe. Specialization, you used to be very broad and general. Now we're going into specific fields. That's a win, right? And then true workflow. More module, more adaptable, like workflow, but again, based on like what is the use case, what is that human, what are they actually doing? All right, toolkits that are delivering today. Big word slide. We're not going to say all of them, but this is not a recommend. This is not, I'm just noting things that I see at clients and in the universe. So when you get this, you can go through it. Here are names. Curiosity questions. So, it spans sort of content enrichment down to image creation, down to workflow. Anyone that you're familiar with? Anyone use these tools in day-to-day life? Yep. Anyone you want to call out that you sort of have some experience with?
Claude.
Claude. Yep. Claude for sure. And curious, if you what use case do you use Claude for?
Honestly, like a lot of personal content generation, writing emails, writing blog posts, things of that nature. And
Yep.
It's like, something that might have taken me a week. It's like just good enough to start iterating on in an hour.
Yeah, and Claude, which used to have a really, their entry in the market was unintentionally more consumer focused. All of these systems have an enterprise hook now. They all come with different governance models. They all come with ROI. They fit into OKRs. I think in the session we're talking about OKRs. I like that too. So just a thing when you look through it to refer back to. Use case patterns. So media and entertainment, you're doing social copy, like channel, the movie's coming out. What's the one that's coming out? I don't know. I feel like I'm overwhelmed with some of this. Other patterns, CPG, rapid creation and scoring paired together is definitely one that crosses both small and large industries. Again, packaging concepts being refined and tested in hours instead of weeks and days. Pharma is pretty amazing with what they're doing with compliance. Pharma regulations are extraordinary. They are so tough. If you figure just take the FDA, put in Europe, and put it every other territory that you're going to sell a product in, and try to keep that straight, that's a lot of Excel sheets. That's how the world has been doing it. There's a lot of good work here. Retail and e-commerce, automated refreshes. When Santa comes out, when the beach towels come out, this happens automatically. All right, metrics. If you can't measure it, you can't do it. So again, this is more of a takeaway slide, but I just want to highlight some common metrics that different companies are using with my 8,000 clicks. Time to approve, creative throughput, asset reuse, review cycles. These are all very popular. Quality and consistency score. So things to think about. You don't have to have the same measurements. You have to measure it. You have to decide why you're using the tool. You have to have the use case, and you have to decide where you want to go and if you're successful. And then I think the stats actually made it in here. So some of this is very cool. Anyone have a favorite? No? A favorite one that you use, that you've done stuff with, that you think is successful, needed. What do you think?
Favorite AI tool?
No, I mean one of these. Which metric makes you wake up in the morning with joy? Creative throughput. I think that I would wake up with joy on that. You're not fast enough. Oh, we used to do, offshore, onshore, you just throw bodies at it. This is a way, there are a lot of tools out there that can help with creative throughput. Anyone have a second favorite that brings joy? Come on, this is a joyful moment.
Time to approve.
Time to approve. There we go. That is a good one. Now, the old days, quote unquote, if it still gets stuck in your inbox, or the workflow isn't really done, time to approve doesn't really get that much better. But it used to be, here's a QA folder, you give it to someone on a clipboard, and they approve it or they don't. So that's one thing. This is one of my favorite ones about sentiment. This happens to be for a baby restraining device. What is this? A car seat. Sorry, I have dogs. So green, 90s. 5.1. So what was interesting about this tool is that this looks scary. It's red, it looks vaguely demonic, and apparently in the sentiment score, there were no smiles, happy neighbors, ease of use. This just looks like the chair you sit in to get electrocuted, right? So I thought that was pretty cool to include. I had a boss for a long time that used to talk about broken chips. In his honor, I occasionally throw in a Pringles slide. Yep. Here are the red flags. You don't have review and oversight. You cannot deploy AI without review and oversight. If you have a leader that tells you to turn the AI on and go on vacation, look for another job. Undertraining a team, this is a red flag all the time. You cannot, and this is true for any change management motion, you cannot just give a system or a platform and assume that they know what to do with it. Yes, there are lots of wonderful UIs out there that are tested, that are actually backed by great research, but don't undertrain. Automate without guardrails. Ooh, this is amazing. All sorts of stuff is flying around. Your whip product is going to explode. And then your damn manager is going to come for you and be like, why is 100 million things now created in here? And because there were no guardrails. Mislabeling or overhyping. AI is what it is. Like, I think there's a reality check moment. And in many organizations, some less, I think less so than even 6 months ago, this was a big problem. Right? Jazz hands. Lots of jazz hands. All right, your friend, capability models. Has anyone seen an AI capability model? Again, for you to review later. The theory of a capability model is you go from left to right. Very few companies are truly innovating in AI. This is like 2% of the world. Most companies, if you want to take a guess, where do we think most companies are if you read these words? So we've got curious, engaged, scaling, executing, innovating, higher organization, higher structure, higher outcomes. If 70% of the companies in the world were in one spot, where do you think they are?
Yes.
Not bad. So this last year, that was a true statement. This year, engaged. So they've started pockets of governance, targeted ideation. We're using some workflow, and we're looking at data. I love the press releases by companies that are touting how AI works for them. Don't believe everything you read in the news, but capability models are your friends. All right, I'm going to do 3 use cases and tell you a little bit about how they solved it. So there's a very large gaming company. Anyone play games? All right, a couple gamers in the room. And they were trying to connect all their marketing assets to demographics. So in this case, we have, we'll say, Valkyrie the Warrior. We've got different poses. Marketing has many, many, many screenshots that come from the game itself, and very little in a way to actually execute it. I'm going to go straight to this one. One of the largest gaming companies in the world, approximately 30% of all the assets in their DAM have partial metadata, which means the actual number of assets that have full metadata is probably single digits, right? So 10 terabytes of assets, I went straight to the why. Big gulf between creative. Their outcome is find and deploy the right images and match mood and demographic. Unable to do that with 10 terabytes of assets, impossible. Even if you threw dozens and dozens and dozens of staff aug at that, you're never really going to break into the mold that you want to get into. So that's the outcome. Reality, low findability, manual lag for every campaign. Anytime they wanted to launch a game, and we know games are late anyway, the marketing was behind them. Content analysis paralysis. Let's use this one, let's use that one, let's use this one, right? Go back and forth. You've got the problem here. Take a first step, learn and ideate. Their tactics were ask experts. They had internal experts, but they also recognized they didn't have all the internal expertise they needed. And how might we? Which I love that question. It's similar to how can I help, how might we? They, this is a year ago, now have about 60% of their assets well partially tagged. Not bad. Like they've been doing it in pieces, and their campaigns that match you when you're online and you're wondering why exactly the image looks like the girlfriend or boyfriend or human that you would like to date. Yep, they know now. Demographics are real. So that's one use case, and this is a multi-million-dollar company. But they started with object identification connected to that personality and that sentiment and demographic. Which one's next? All right. Use case, image analysis, content operations, and metadata. So if you're an advertiser or in your media and you use any images, if someone takes your photo today, what do they need to do to put it anywhere else? You have to have a release. So by walking through the doors today, I think we all signed the release. We are all able to take, our photos can be used somewhere. And if you are a media or movie company and you work in censorship areas, you might have some challenges. Now, out of curiosity, if you're aware of cultural sensitivities to some of the markets, this one right here violated the censorship rules in 7 different countries, partially because it's a cultural and iconic religious figure. So their metadata challenge was this: how do you reduce the distribution risk in violating censorship rules? Like, the current reality is production didn't know what they were doing. It wasn't connected to the rest of the ecosystem. And you've got lots of business units in the entity. Limited metadata. For some reason, no one likes metadata. It's right next to governance. You should wake up and feel joy. And I know that Adobe stood on a stage last year and said that metadata is dead. I am aware of that statement. Limited connection to appropriate business and distribution groups. The organization goal was to connect the clearances with the actual assets. And the tactic was really working between the production and business units and doing workflow design sprints. So in this case, what they ended up doing was identifying, automating, finding the issues that didn't have clearance. And so that image was replaced with this image, a nice cleared image that could be used and go out to the public. All right, the third one. This story should really be titled A Family on a Plane. And I was on a plane. I was flying across the country one minute and went after this company as a target just for fun because I wanted to know what was going on. But the scene was this: if you've ever sat in the front of a plane and you're enjoying your glass of wine and you're wondering why a kid is screaming. On this flight, I noticed that the metadata had been switched. So instead of watching a comedy, children's movie with a unicorn, and the description said children's movie with a unicorn, the child saw the image, read the description, and watched something that had chainsaws in the woods. And the mother started screaming, the flight attendant started screaming, and thus one of my favorite use cases ever, because the child did not stop for 4.5 hours. It was very traumatizing, and it looked like that. So, but the reality for this company, and it wasn't mine, because I was immediately like, is this a Fox title? De-risk reduced metadata distribution errors. Like, it's not just your brand and reputation. This could be real monetary loss. This could be risk for your company. Like, anytime something like this happens, there was no end-to-end tracking. They used to throw metadata in images, and the quote was throwing a softball 9 months into the future, or baseball 9 months into the future. Tagging was incomplete. Language facility was incomplete. There was low collaboration. And they weren't able to mobilize cross-functionally. So you had this real disconnect, and what it ended up in was a very human moment where there was no automation. You didn't have that AI toolkit available for you, and so it was a human error. And now these are 3 use cases where specific uses with well-defined use cases can make a difference and ensure you have a very quiet, normal flight. No? Yes? It was really happened. She was a very nice woman. The kid was not very nice. All right. So a couple takeaways. So best practices. Target a high impact bottleneck, not your most complicated. Please do not try to build a better mousetrap to solve everything in your organization in one fell swoop. Start with a clear, repetitive workflow that has high value. It's sort of a balance. I think sometimes there's a desire to overcomplicate these use cases. Try to make them a little more straightforward. Define success early. If, for example, and this never happens, your IT department has already bought you a tool and didn't tell you they did and didn't train you on it, okay, try to define success early. Yes, obviously that's happened to a couple of people. Set measurable KPIs, and you want to align with your stakeholders. Measure and iterate, fail fast. I know it's been around for a while. I still love the phrase. Try to fail fast, track results, review often. And then for your results as you're doing this, document, and then prioritize. And when we talk about prioritizing fit, choose tools that integrate well. It's an amazing moment to see something that you think will do awesome things that can never possibly connect to the ecosystem in which you live. That's not going to work. You are automatically setting yourself up for challenges to come. All right, so some parting thoughts, and then we can do some QA if you want, and I can tell you more stories. Don't forget all the good practices you already know. I feel like with AI and with AI toolkits, we have literally forgotten 20 years of RFPs and use case development and UX and UI. Like, it's just gone poof, and then suddenly AI is here, right? And I'm not sure why, but it's happened. The other thing is, don't get distracted by shiny objects. That email that you get every day with the latest 70 tools that were just created since yesterday, be cautious. Try, experiment, and fail but really think about fit, think about purpose, and think about the reason you're going to do something. And so that's today's review. Thank you. Thoughts, questions, feedback?
Great overview.
I know it's quick, sorry, but there's like so much that you can do here. And the companies and like you see
trying
them.
to condense everything.
I know, like students are. So the student thing is interesting because we have we have students from like sporting leagues, we have museums, and they're very open. There's a certain generation that will tell you anything, and so in their homework assignment, they're just like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" And the AI broke on a Tuesday, and it does this on a thing. But when we talk about why are things breaking, they didn't define it. They didn't write out the use case. They're just using a thing. And then the other barrier is there's a perception that AI is unapproachable. And AI is approachable, I think, in increments. Even if you're in an organization that has really strict guardrails, you absolutely can do a small test and learn to get a subset. And you can draw data from it. You can do quantitative data, and you can do qualitative. And that could be part of a bit of a gas pedal to get things going. So you've got the too fast motion and the too slow motion. Anyone got a good AI story from your friend's company or organization? You have a friend? Les does.
I mean, it's just like we're very much in the find out phase, just digging in, seeing what it does, trialing it. It's just a lot of excitement about it right now. I mean, I think the story is like this is the most excited I think my coworkers have been about technology in like a decade.
What was the last technology they were excited about?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Probably Docker.
Oh, that's a good one. That's right. That makes sense. Anyone in an A? Oh, go ahead.
Do you work with undergrads and like quite young students?
I do workshops where sometimes with them. Yes.
What are they like AI native, if that's even a term that we're starting to use? Like, what are they doing with it, where it's almost the tools that are built into their kind of developed brains that they're.
So, has anyone seen the Clone Yourself app lately that showed up on a lot of feeds, or some feeds, or my feed? So they're embracing. There's an app that you talk to it, and so it stores everything that you say to it. Like today, I made a lettuce salad, or I did this, and I'm having a fight with Les, or I'm saying hello to you. Like, and you put in all your information there, and then it makes decisions for you. Super. It's supposed to. I know. I love your eyes got like boop. So it's supposed to relieve you of anxiety. And what I saw the undergrads doing versus masters and PhD students is they are using it some of them are using it much more as a companion, as though we're a living creature. And so they have it synced up into their earbuds where they just tap a thing or say a code word, their music stops, they give the model some more information about what they're thinking about, and then they go on with their day. It's much more integrated into their personal life. It's also a challenge because it's also much more integrated into their homework. So it's very easy to put a thing in, and we use AI checkers. So to look for the probability of whether what you've written is written by AI. Those checkers are working less and less well because now you have models that actually defeat deciding. Like I can smell ChatGPT from about a mile away usually, but like those checkers used to be very reliable. In the last 6 months, they're like, meh, maybe it's AI, maybe it's not. But the undergrads are like, they're producing it in the model in their own voice, and so it uses their, anachronisms, it uses their colloquialisms, it says things and writes things the way they would, and so you're like, oh, that sounds pretty good. Typically where you can identify, grad students are much more cautious, but I think like professionals in different fields, what's true is everyone's feeling the pressure to use it. And so you get a lot of really interested, please solve my real world problems. But the undergrads, they've already moved on. AI is already here for them. So it's interesting. Yes?
Have you given some thought if, say, ChatGPT gets hacked and, or that app that you mentioned, the students are creating copies of themselves, and then that gets released to the world. You have these kids that get picked on and bullied. And I imagine a scenario where their data is out there in the world and, everyone knows everything about it.
Do you know what a red team is?
Yes, absolutely.
So red team is meant to defeat security or test and break something. Not for humans, but this is actually a topic for, there's a great Shopify moment. Walmart had one. A couple big corporations have had red teams reverse engineer from ChatGPT things like their wholesale prices, executive names, executive phone numbers, executive data. That happens. You need really smart people to direct really high-powered models to defeat the other models, at least as of 8:47 this morning. But yeah, there is concern about that because you can actually, if you remember New York Times 2 years ago, after 4 hours of talking to the model, the New York Times chatbot fell in love with the writer, who then asked him to get divorced. Like, this is still real. So like I approach AI like, oh, what can I do for good? You absolutely, in unguarded models, ask what can I do for bad? How can I make someone feel bad? How do I help ruin someone's day-to-day? And there are now ads in the last couple of months for apps that specifically hype the fact that they have no guardrails. And so that's, I think, in my mind, a maybe less positive development.
They're not putting Isaac Asimov's 3 Rules of Robotics yet?
No, they haven't. That's a great reference, too. I met him once a long time ago.
Really?
Yeah, when I was like, yay, hi. Last question? Or question? Not last.
Companies are not adopting AI as fast as they could because AI is moving really fast, and they might think that 6 months or a year from now, something is going to get out in the world that will solve all of their problems. Like the perfect AI tool is going to come up at some point. That's why they are not trying to do something, that might be obsolete in 6 months.
If you want to hear a scary story about pharma, so pharma uses AI extensively. And I was telling a scientist about some of the work I was doing with AI, and a table of scientists started yelling at me at once. And they explained something to me very clearly, that yes, pharma is using AI, and AI has not created one viable drug yet. Still true statement. It has created the most toxic, deadly poisons ever created in the history of mankind. More than humans ever had. So, now there's an interesting why behind it, and I love that like jaws are dropping. But it's a true statement as of today. And all of the beautiful companies around us will have different flavors of it, but I guarantee you it is a true statement. Now, have they refined a drug to make it a little bit better? Yes. Has anything ever been created new by AI? No. The reason is data. AI survives because of the extensive and unlimited amount of data that it works with. If I'm a Biogen, an Amgen, a Sanofi, a Genentech, I'm just saying pharma names, I have a data source, it's mine. You have a data source, it's mine. So maybe you know everything about feet, you know everything about eyes, you know everything about lungs. My AI looks at my data and designs something that immediately causes my foot to get better and kills my eyes. This one makes my eyes have sharper eyesight and kills my kidney. This one fixes my kidney and kills my eyes. It's because the data sets aren't shared and they're limited. Pharmaceutical companies are talking about this, and they're looking into a how do we not compete but still compete but share data to help humanity way. So in that case, it's being held back by a desire to keep competitive advantage. That's one of my favorite examples to talk about. So pharma creates instant death. No, not true. So, yeah.
So I don't know if you have any information on like what effect is AI having on people's motivation, because there was one stat you had where it was like, oh, you're saving 11 hours a week because AI can help you, and I'm like, but are you just using that 11 hours that you saved to like read articles about AI advancements, go look at AI tools and test them, and you're not really doing any other work that's productive for your company? Or maybe you're just sitting there going, now what do I do because this AI did it for me? Like, is there...
So, if you finish your work early on a Friday, do you stop working? Maybe, maybe not. There is a lot of quantitative and qualitative analysis on that topic. My observation is the results are mixed. So there are definitely situations where with the tool, people are like, yep, I'm going to do better things and more interesting things. I'm going to leave this behind me. No one wants to do like data tagging, hours and hours of that. There's a definite group of humans who are doing that. There is also post-pandemic, and there was a bump in this, and it happened to arrive at the same time that AI tools became more accessible and more impact fit and use case fit, which is I got to where I needed to go, and then you stop. And so I think it's one of the most interesting human questions to try to answer, but the data is not yet formed. So, but yeah, it's a great question. Any other thoughts? All right, you guys have been very, very kind. Oh, one last one, yeah.
This is just kind of brainstorming, but there was a concept of big data before AI just took over the buzzword, right?
Yeah.
But now that this LLMs have been so much developed, I've heard that they've already consumed all the data that's out there on the internet. Have there been developments to kind of bring back like more data capture, to generate more data so that they can be consumed by AI, like within
So
companies
it's
or-
interesting. It's so there are two trends, dynamics, things happening in the background. AI is now consuming its own data, which is skewing the model and causing drift. So you have model drift. So it's sort of like if you sit in a room by yourself and start believing everything you say. And then you literally, in the visualizations I've seen, IBM does some wonderful things. You can literally see the model being like it's moving away from actual data towards versions data. And I mean thousands of generations of a data point, hundreds of thousands of generations, and drift happens. There is a concept of that lockdown, guardrailed, controlled environments with very specific protocols are trying to recapture some of that spirit, which is in line with a lot of companies that don't want to share their data. To your point earlier about if I put things into here, can't we reverse engineer it and find out about it? But there's a lot more energy towards let's just get it out there. But that shift, that creep, is real, and it's because it's eating its own tail. Now, for cases like productivity, just to back away a little bit from eating its own tail, if you set up AI to work with you on brand images with 10 languages going to 14 countries, it's not going to eat its own tail. If you are trying to answer bigger questions and doing a lot of ideation, absolutely you're going to start seeing drift. But for automation, again, it depends on how tight the use case. If the use case is here and it's very confined, AI, super valuable, success being you're hitting your outcomes. If you're more diffuse, less constrained, higher, more diverse scope, you start seeing these variables. So, yeah.
I know before you're asking about the company's success with AI, and the reason why I raised my hand is because I have a lot of success right now with AI, and that's because I have a smaller company, and that allows me to really keep up with larger companies. An example being, my back-end developer and my front-end developer, I can use Codex to have it to start 100 pieces of work on its own branches, and then I can create 100.
It can just go.
And the lead developers just review it. And if I think about how long it would take for the developers to do all that work, it would take too much time. But now they just have to review, tweak, and I can bring out features to the clients very quickly. So I've had a lot of success. And with Manus AI, the autonomous agent, you can have it really do anything.
Yeah, you can have it create many things.
That's with Manus as well.
There's a Microsoft anecdote from years ago when Microsoft realized the engineers couldn't figure out what their code was doing. And that happened a long time ago, even before AI became, happily ensconced on your Android or iPhone. So, cool. I'm around later today. If anyone's around, please say hi. So I teach at Rutgers, I do consulting, and my dog's name is Murphy. So thank you.
Thanks, Ty.